What's up, everybody? Welcome back in to another edition of SSPN Postgame. And while this was a heartbreaking loss, Ethan, I think this is probably the best heartbreaking loss we've had this year in terms of the Spurs' performance and the caliber of opponent they were playing, despite Devin Booker being out. Tell me all about it, Ethan. What'd you think of this game against the Suns?
Overall, I know we lost, but I was happy with the way that we competed. I know the Phoenix Suns were without Devin Booker, who's a big part of their team, but even still, they're a championship caliber team with guys like Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton. They have veteran presence with Jay Crowder, JaVale McGee, guys that have been there, done it before. So I think everybody thought the Spurs were going to be an easy win, and we managed to stay in there pretty much the entire game, despite having some pretty, awful second and third quarters there. We still managed to keep it close all the way to the end until Chris Paul finally decided, you know what, I'm going to take it over and win this game for the Phoenix Suns. There wasn't a whole lot that we did terribly, Jude. It's not one of those games that we're just mad and I'm going to be ranting about X, Y, and Z, because there wasn't that much to rant about, because I think it really just came down to the Phoenix Suns being a better team, and the San Antonio Spurs being, you know, maybe play in, but probably not even that at this point in the season.
Yeah, I think that this game kind of just came down to the little things at the end of the day. And when,
Hmm.
you look at a team that was in the finals last year versus a team that's their first year really playing together,
Yeah.
that's kind of what it came down to. But the other things that I kind of wanted to start off just with our overall kind of performance for the team tonight. So I felt like there were a couple things that were the difference in this game. So, unfortunately, and this has been a recurring theme, if you guys have been watching us, you know that we've been talking about free throws all year.
Oh,
And when you have, let's see, you have six missed free throws tonight and you lose by four. So, I mean, it,
yeah.
and I hate to put it like that because it isn't just free throws, right? There's a lot more in basketball, but at the same time, if you make all your free throws, you win. And it doesn't even matter, even if you just make two more in a certain situation, it's a tie game, like
Yeah.
especially down the stretch. Like if you make two more of those free throws, that DeJounte, fast break with Chris Paul there where it was just tough for DeJounte. Chris Paul made a great play. Like that play's canceled out if you make two more of your free throws. You know what I'm saying? And that's a
Mhm.
big play like late in the game. So that was one of the things that I saw was the difference tonight. Another thing that's kind of a positive thing I feel like is not only do they have more established NBA talent with more experience, right? You mentioned their main guys, some of their role players they have, Cam Johnson,
Campaign.
Mikal Bridges, Cam Payne. Those are all guys who have, late postseason championship experience.
Hmm.
Um, but Devin Vassell didn't play tonight. That's another thing. If Devin Vassell plays tonight, you feel a lot better about this game. I feel like there were a lot of times during this game where the Spurs beat themselves with just silly turnovers. I remember there was that one late fourth quarter pick and roll with Keldon and Jakob where Keldon just accidentally throws it out of Brown, miscommunication. We saw that throughout the night in multiple instances.
Hmm.
And it's sad because it's like, okay, that would have been great. You could have continued this win streak, got a big win against, a team with the best record in the NBA. But at the same time, as Floyd Kizzy says, yes, too many turnovers and missed free throws. But at the same time, the positive out of this is the fact that you're competing with this team,
At
and
this
you've
point, yeah.
yeah, and you've both their Devin was out and your Devin was out. And I know that you can't compare Devin Booker to Devin Vassell, but at the same time, like those are the both you were down, and we haven't even talked about Zach Collins. We'll get into that. And you can say that for every game, but at the same time, the fact that you were able to compete with a team like this on a night where really you didn't play your cleanest basketball, that's a good sign for this young team moving forward, especially after that tough game against the Warriors. To be able to continue to compete on this little stretch against the caliber opponents that they've played, it's just another example of the growth of this team. Because this loss, like you said earlier, this isn't one where we're gonna come on here and we're like, that's how I've came in so many times. And this one, it's like, okay, this is still like no L's are good, but if you had to say, if this was a good or a bad loss overall, this is a solid loss.
Yeah.
So for the Spurs in the position they're in. But alrighty, let's get into our awards for the show tonight. Let's roll with offensive MVP. Ethan, who you got?
This is a tough choice, but I ended up going with DeJounte Murray. He had 17 points tonight, led everybody, but also his 14 assists. That's just, I love a point guard that can pass, and he's becoming a really, really solid facilitator. Also had his 6 rebounds tonight, but 2 for 2 from 3-point land. He pretty much did everything tonight. I know in the first half he kind of struggled to find his own shot, but he kind of caught fire down the stretch as we put him back in the fourth quarter and really kept the game competitive and close all the way through. He was our closer tonight, and he probably could have closed it had Chris Paul not made an unbelievable steal at the end during that fast break that you alluded to earlier. If you didn't see it, go check that out because that was unbelievable. I don't even know how he did it. But DeJounte did everything that we've asked him to do all season long. I know maybe we would have liked to seen him get more points in 17 because he's our number one option, but really everybody shared the offensive load tonight because that's the Spurs way, 6 guys in double figures. So all in all, I was really happy with what DeJounte brought to the game.
He's my offensive MVP too. I see Floyd Kizzy was talking about Chris Paul. He played with him a little bit there. But hey, DeJounte, I was gonna say DeJounte did a pretty good job on Chris Paul. It would have been a lot worse of 21, of 21 and 10, and I think he shot 8 for 19 overall, maybe 8 for 20. I might be
9 of
wrong
18.
on that. 9 of 18. There you go. So still did a solid job. Without him on defense, Chris Paul would have been even more crazy. And the reason I'm talking about his defense, even though we're talking about offensive MVP, is because I gave him defensive and offensive MVP tonight. You saw the clutch steals from him and the way that he was able to contain Chris Paul. It's still Chris Paul, even though he's older. We know how well his play style is translated into old age. So you can't just be like, oh, he got beat up by an old head. Like, it's still Chris Paul. But at the same time, just going back to another thing that DeJounte did, like you mentioned, the thing that sticks out for me, and really the thing, other than him being the leading scorer on a night where really everybody kind of scored in bunches, it's those 14 assists. It's his second game in the last 3 where he's had 13 or more assists. That's huge. I mentioned that in the game where he did that, which was against the Trailblazers, I believe. That was why I gave him the offensive MVP then, and that's why I'm giving it to him now. This is just another part of DeJounte's game. We've kind of seen how in the clutch he can go out and find a way to get that mid-range jumper, and he's got that clutch gene, it feels like. But at the same time, the way that he's been able to distribute is just huge for talking about another area of his growth and development. That wasn't, honestly, coming into the year, if you would have told me that he would have had multiple games with 13, 14 assists, I'm not sure if I would have believed it. I would have felt like, oh no, he's going to have to score more, go get boards. I just didn't think that he really had that in him, to be honest. So yeah. He's showing another side of him and another side of his development that we haven't really seen, that I'm sure the Spurs have seen in the practice gym, which is why he has the contract that he has. And workforce planner, I see you in here, my guy. I think it's the first time seeing you in here. It's so painful watching Chris Paul against the Spurs. That's a great point. You go back to the Clippers series. You go back to so many games. Don't even talk about it. Jude. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. 2015.
But I know I kind of covered defensive and offensive MVP there. Who's your defensive MVP?
I struggle with this one. You could give it to DeJounte Murray. That's perfectly fine. You could even give it to Jakob, even though he kind of struggled a little bit tonight. But I decided to give it to my boy Joshua Primo in limited minutes. I thought he did a very good job defending the Phoenix Suns and Cameron Payne, as well as Johnson at times, and Wainwright, of course. But I was talking to my boy Tanner Robertson, who's in the chat right now, and he was talking to me about his weak side help was like unbelievable. So I decided to watch it a little bit more like in detail. And he was right. Yeah, Primo, his understanding of how to play team defense, it's already there at such a young age. So I decided to give him a shout out, since really nobody to me was like, the runaway favorite for defensive player of the game. Might as well give Primo some love because he did his best out there. Yeah, first award for Primo. Shout out to Primo.
Yeah, it's funny that you talk about Josh Primo as your defensive MVP, because our next category is Unsung Hero, who I had as Josh Primo, because, he had the 3 threes he took, only made that one, put a little bit too much under, that first one. And Workforce Planner, shout out to you, man. Appreciate you being in here from TSR. Went in there earlier, was talking to him. But going back to Josh Primo, exactly. His help defense, his physicality, the way he's always in a defensive stance. He has his hand up. He made Chris Paul pass off a couple times. Yeah. It's very small sample size, but before I was talking about how what I've seen so far from Primo is much more than what I've seen from Lonnie on defense. So
Sorry, man, I made that weird face because
You're good.
I didn't even look at the box score for Primo, but he had 4 blocks tonight.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I'm
I don't even
glad you're mentioning. Yeah, I didn't even
I
really
didn't even
remember
realize
those,
that.
but I do remember the one that he had. I forget
On
who.
Aiton on that
Yeah, I
rotation?
think
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Um, dude, like just at 18 years old for him, he's such an intelligent player. Like that's
Mhm.
what I was noticing. I was like, dude, this guy's got to be like smart to like understand like switches and rotations like this. But when I was watching him, I was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
he's he's so much better than Lonnie on
Already.
defense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so sad because like Lonnie hit some shots when we needed him to hit shots tonight. It was only two, and we talk about him every time, so I'm not trying to crap on him.
Mm.
But I feel like when you're seeing Primo out there like this tonight, it's just like, I mean, we're happy he's playing, first of all, right? That's the thing that we've got to be happy with.
3 steals too. Sorry, I
It's
didn't notice that.
very obvious that he's already better than Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
So
clearly.
that's why we're very happy that he got the minutes. But you can tell that his shot is just so pure. He knows how to find a spot on offense, and he demands attention from the defense, kind of like Doug McDermott, which is why he didn't do too much on offense. He did still have that acrobatic layup in transition, which was something else that you kind of like to see. But man, y'all talk about weak side help. You talk about so many different things with him, and I can't even get into the specifics of it because I don't even know all the terms and the verbiage of like the little spots on the court and the little things that happen and the terms there are in rotations and stuff like that. But the way that he's able to play defense is just, I mean, for the reason that I'm so like I guess floored, if you can tell by the tone of my voice, but it's just how young he is and
Yeah.
how he came in and just fit in tonight. And so we kind of saw that in the other little, second quarter episodes with him, but to see him get consistent minutes and consistently play defense the way that he did, it's like Tanner says, he's a
Yeah.
good all around basketball player, kind of like Devin too. So those picks, they're killing it in the past 2 years in the first round. And just to talk about this, since we're on kind of these young players, what do you think of Trey Jones tonight? Because I know he missed a lot of shots, but I
Mhm.
felt like his effort and still, his upside, even though it was a down game, I kind of wanted to talk about him and just talk about, overall his performance tonight, but like kind of the positives in a
Yeah.
negative night for him. I don't know if you saw it that way, but
Yeah, I mean, he kind of came back down to earth as far as being like surprising with his offensive abilities. Like a 1 for 8 tonight, not an efficient night as far as scoring. But I still felt like his impact was there as a facilitator, as a guy that plays hard nosed defense. He had 4 steals tonight, which I didn't even notice during the game.
see, those are, yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
notice that either. But we had a lot of steals tonight.
And I can't he's so much bigger than I thought. Like watching him on the court, like he can battle with some bigger players. I know Bryn Forbes had a great game tonight, but I still like Trey Jones getting minutes over Bryn. Unless Bryn is obviously hitting some shots like he was tonight. What did he say? Primo of a cell, man. Yeah,
Oh,
honestly.
fast forward, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. The next MJ and Scotty, except better because Scotty sucks. Anyway, but yeah, I wasn't upset with Trey Jones not playing well as far as scoring the basketball because he did everything else very well, and I've never expected him to be a scorer, at least not yet. That's not his specialty. His specialty is facilitating and getting in the right spots and making sure that everybody else is also in the right spots. And I felt like he did that tonight.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously not the best night for him offensively, but yeah, he is always going to be a guy on defense that is going to give you effort and is going to make plays. And at the end of the day, like especially when we get people like Devin Vassell back and you have a little bit more firepower on
Yeah,
that bench, like Trey's role is more to kind of help those guys out. And I think maybe that's something that they could tell him a little bit more like, hey, focus a little bit more on facilitating. You're really good at that. What you got, Ethan?
I don't know the exact stat, but exactly what you're saying. Notice how much better Bryn Forbes has started to play since Trey Jones has gotten more
Yes,
minutes.
that is a good point, and I didn't think about that. And speaking of Bryn Forbes, he's another guy who has just been consistent recently off the bench. I know that Bryn is a defensive liability, but he
Mhm.
still gives more effort than he did when he wore number 11.
Yeah.
And he is still, I mean, we wouldn't have been in the game tonight without him.
Mhm.
And there are a couple other games, the past three games on this win streak before the loss, we wouldn't have been in the game
Mhm.
if he didn't play the way that he did.
He
So
was my unsung hero tonight. I never told you who it was, but
I didn't even
Bridgeport.
ask you. I don't think so. So there you
You
go.
just don't care about me anymore, Jude.
Yeah, I know.
It's
We're
becoming the
going
Jude show.
we're going through a lot right now. It's really tough, guys. But I think that Ethan's going to get more screen time moving forward. All right. Well, anyways,
Yeah.
let's talk about overall team stuff. What are some things that you feel like maybe could have been the difference tonight? And I feel like it's going to start with this Floyd Kizzy comment here, Ethan, because, and just for those of you listening, what Floyd's comment is would you have liked to see Landale get McGee out of the lane? Essentially, would you have liked to see, we saw in the second half that Thaddeus Young didn't play because JaVale McGee, who is 7 feet tall, and DeAndre Ayton, who is 7 feet plus tall, he might be taller than that, I'm not sure his exact height, were just like, oh, catch ball, score. Because, this is the same thing we talked about with Keldon last year at the 4. So, what do you feel like the Spurs could have done better tonight? We were really missing potentially Jock Landale. We'll have to see with that. But we were definitely missing Zach Collins tonight in this type of game.
Yeah, size just continues to be a huge issue. Out rebounded tonight, 41-49. When you got 2 7-footers on your team and they're also athletic, it's really hard for the Spurs to compete against your team. To no fault of their own. Poor Thaddeus Young was just completely outmatched tonight. And we tried throwing Drew Eubanks in there, who's also not exactly a 7-footer, and he did a little bit better, but it still wasn't what we wanted, because then we lost so much offensively because Thad's really one of our primary facilitators off the bench. I would have loved to have seen Jock Landale get some minutes just because of need. I still don't know why he's not getting any. I guess Pop is just still, rocking with Drew Eubanks and Thaddeus Young and saying that Jock Landale's not ready yet. Maybe he's not ready yet. Maybe we don't know. Maybe he's really struggling to learn the offense. I guess that could be the case. But when you're getting out rebounded as badly as we've been, you just want to see him get something.
Absolutely. Didn't mean to interrupt you there, but it also just might be, the Spurs culture thing.
That too, yeah.
And not to, I know I kind of looked like I was rolling my eyes there because it's just frustrating when you have somebody 6'11", 255 on the bench.
Can't get in the game.
Yeah, they just can't get in the game, and your problem is that you need somebody that size.
Yep.
But, I mean, we've gone down this road so many times with Jock. Y'all know. Y'all know that, what he is. But here's a more important question from Tanner. Do we think Collins would even help against their front court? I think that this is a fair question. I feel like I don't know. I probably need to watch more Zach Collins tape, but from what I've seen, probably the area that would concern people is just his defense. Like, he's a good shot blocker, but you can be a good shot blocker and be a poor post defender. Like, you really can.
Roy Hibbert.
Hassan Whiteside.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think that's going to be the case with Zach. I think that he's going to get better under the Spurs. This is an optimistic perspective, so maybe I'm wrong and we get nipped in the butt and he doesn't make a difference and he would have got bullied by JaVale McGee this game. But I have to think, personally, I think he would help, definitely, against their front court, just because of the fact that he's 6'11", 250, and just would be able to match up size-wise with somebody like JaVale way more easily than Thaddeus Young.
Yeah, for me, it's would he have turned this into a win? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But he's definitely an improvement over Thaddeus and Drew at that position as far as being able to compete with their size, be physical, get rebounds, and also, stretch the floor. Because he is a very capable three-point shooter as well.
Yeah, and that's probably the most intriguing thing about Zach. And just remember, guys, also about Zach Collins is his contract is super friendly. There's still some concerns about him coming off that injury, being an ankle/foot injury with a big man. That's tough, but there's no risk in his contract at all. I don't even think any money is guaranteed starting next year.
Yeah.
And we've got 2 team options on the dude. So it's like a very low risk contract and high reward. So we'll see. 23 years old, can stretch the floor, like you said, but at the end of the day, it's, midway through, it might have been the first quarter or at some point in the first half, I know it was, they pull up a graphic and it's like DeAndre Ayton and JaVale McGee, after the first substitution of both of those guys, already had 10 points each. So that's 20 points easy. And it's not Thaddeus Young's fault. He's just
Mm-mm.
6'8", 6'7", and he's
Yep.
playing against 7-foot dudes. He's not gonna be able to. He's not gonna be able to guard him.
And they're
So
not
we're
they're not like guys that lumber around either. They can move on their feet.
Yeah, and like our man F. Nico says, providing some more resistance in the paint, which can happen just by the nature of being 6'11" and being actually
Mhm.
able to contest them, is
Yeah.
just enough. You saw that even with Jakob at the end of the game, missing
Yeah.
those 2 freebies. That was tough, but I guess height matters in this sport. That's a good one,
Yeah.
workforce. But
I know he
you know,
hasn't played in a while either, but when he did play a few years back, they sometimes put him and Nurkic together, I'm pretty sure, in
mhm.
Portland. So we could easily, if we're really struggling to get rebounds and compete with size, put him at the 4, put Jakob at the 5, and just roll with it, see what happens.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. And we actually saw the Drew Eubanks Jock Landale front court last game. So maybe Pop is actually thinking of some big lineups. I know that was in garbage time, but the fact that that was even a lineup he had written down
Hmm.
was just a little intriguing nugget. Maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't at all.
He's saving
But
it for the playoffs.
yes, he's saving it for the playoffs.
Yeah, he's gonna unleash that
For
weapon.
the 4 or 5 matchup, right? And
Imagine we're in the playoffs and all of a sudden the starting lineup has Drew Eubanks and Jock Landale.
And Jock just hasn't played the
Yeah,
whole year.
it's his first
But he just
starting.
comes in and Pop's like, we only use them when we need them.
Gets Finals MVP.
Oh my gosh. Oh Lord. Well, hey, let's talk about some things that we did well this game. Like we said, this is a good loss. Obviously, no losses are good, but if we had to choose a good one, this is a decent one. So what were some things you saw well from the guys tonight?
We stayed competitive. We came out still riding that wave of confidence that we've gathered pretty much since the Boston game, which I liked. I know we kind of lost some energy in the second and third quarter, but I don't think that was because of complacency as much as Phoenix just kind of turned it on, and we struggled to find a basket with our bench unit because of playing without Devin Vassell, and then Lonnie wasn't playing particularly well either, and then we were getting beat down low with Thaddeus and Drew, so we just kind of struggled there in the second 2 quarters. Uh, but we picked it back up in the fourth quarter, stayed competitive all the way through, which I like to see from our young guys. We also got to that 30 assist mark. We had 31 assists tonight, which usually is a recipe for success. I know tonight it wasn't, but we only lost by 4 points against a very talented team, so I'll take that as a win. At least we're distributing the ball and playing with some more
The
fluidity.
offense is so much more in rhythm.
Way better, yes. And all 5 starters in double figures. I like that too. We're sharing the wealth. Nobody's being a ball hog, and everybody's contributing. I like to see Doug McDermott hitting a few threes, especially at the end there. He kind of caught fire late. I know we would love to have that at the beginning of the game as well. But with shooters, sometimes you just have to get what you get because whenever they catch fire, just take it when you can. So everybody played pretty well tonight. Like I said, the difficulties of having a young team can drive us crazy sometimes, but it's a good learning experience. I'm glad we got it out of the way early, and maybe we can get some wins down the road.
Yeah, this was a much more like I don't know. The learning experiences early in the year were just like,
Hmm.
man, you just got to take your beatings. And now
Yep.
it's like, okay, you actually have tangible things
Yes.
that you can be like, hey, here's what you did. Here's what we can do better. Here's how we can change it to win the game. That's what we're seeing now. And I mean, like you're coming off playing, you just had a back to back, with not back to back, like in days, but in games. You had back to back games against two of the best teams in the NBA that at the time of the game, they either had or were tied for the best record in the league. And so it's early. And you don't want to take too much away from these because you can go back to the Clippers Lakers wins, from 2020, right? And that you get some wins against some of these better teams earlier in the year, and then when you face them later, it's not the same story.
Mhm.
But I really feel like this team is kind of on a different trajectory and is a very different team than obviously the 2020 team, as we all know. And I still think that, like you said, this is a great move forward. And we'll see if they can keep kind of putting things together and trying to get back on track moving forward with these guys. But there were some other things that I had written down. So, look, I'm never this guy, and this was not the reason that the Spurs lost tonight. But, dude, like, what what did you think of the refs? This was a tough one for me. I felt like it was just I felt like, especially that CP foul at the end, bro. Doug didn't
Yeah,
even touch him.
I know.
Doug didn't even touch him. And like, look, when you're home court, you get more calls usually. So it goes both ways. This isn't the reason they lost, but I did feel like and this is like, you could even argue on both sides. Like, I feel like that tee up on Jay Crowder late in the
Oh
game
yeah,
was that was a makeup call by
yeah.
far, though, because earlier in the game, whenever he blocked Keldon and then like put his chest into him and said something straight to his face, and Keldon just smiled, which I loved. But at the same time, I was like, that's a T. Like, come on now. Like, I don't know. I know we're Spurs fans, but even I, like, that one, I think that call later in the game was more of like an accumulation of him like, walking that line the whole game. And that was just kind of how the refs were. So what did you think?
Yeah, they were okay. I still feel like a lot of the refs are kind of struggling to feel out the new rules and stuff. So they're kind of pulling on the reins and letting them loose and pulling on the reins. And I'd rather a consistent thing happen.
I
You know what I
agree.
mean? But hopefully they, like our team, they continue to improve as the season progresses. But it's felt kind of off
Oh,
balance so far. Weirdly.
yeah. Tonight, I get your commentary there for sure. I don't know, something about this game though tonight. They were getting the calls that when you go to the finals, you get that effect, man. So
Yeah, and you're also
the
CP3. You're point
yeah,
guard. So
yeah. But yeah, though CP3 does never miss from mid range his entire career.
yeah.
But
He is
man,
so good at getting the matchup that he wants. I mean, we tried a couple
he
times
was
to
he was
refuse it.
getting
It was like,
Deshante off of him
mhm,
every time. Doug McDermott, Jakob, yeah,
yep.
and anyways. But another thing that I had written down. So this is a little note that I have for Keldon, in just a way that he can get better, is just improving his touch around the rim a little bit more, because he's got all the brute strength. He
Hmm.
just needs to get a little bit better at that finesse. And he's made some tough layups before, for sure, but there were some misses tonight where I feel like it was more about touch than like defense. And that
Yeah.
was same thing with Jakob at the end of the game. So that's one thing that I just kind of saw with him. We've seen him kind of improve that and adding the mid-range stuff, although we haven't seen as much from Keldon, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But if he can improve his touch around the rim when he's driving, I think that would allow for him to get a couple more buckets. And then the final thing I had written down was just Derrick. He didn't have the greatest game tonight, especially on the stat sheet, but it still felt very far off from his early season troubles. So I just kind of wanted to get your take on Derrick tonight. This is kind of similar to Trey Jones. Even though it wasn't the best game, like, I still felt like when I was watching Derrick, there was a big difference from him, 6 games ago.
I don't know why, but he feels way more impactful. Even though he's still not getting the big numbers. He only had 12 points tonight, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. Nothing like spectacular.
Yeah, in
But it's,
last game he did, but other
yeah,
than that,
but like in this game, it felt like his presence on the court had, I don't know, it opened up more things. It felt like he was actually a threat when early in the season he was really just like an empty body standing on the court next to DeJounte Murray. And it felt like Phoenix actually had to treat him like a threat this time, which opened up the rest of the court. I'm a little weirded out why, I don't know why he wasn't playing toward the end of the fourth quarter when we had Bryn in. It was like starters and then Bryn instead of Derrick. And I was like, I don't know why that is. I know Derrick's struggling to
I
shoot.
think they were just riding the hot hand,
Yeah,
which
but they
is
had
something
taken
we've
Bryn
criticized.
out and then put him back in. You know what I mean? Like he hadn't hit a shot in a while, and then they left him in. I was texting Tanner, and he was
So
like, "Why is he in?" I'm like, "Well, because he was hot, and but he hasn't hit in a while." And then they took him out, and then they put him back
so
in.
when did they take him out? Because I remember the rotations, because we stuck with Trey Jones,
Hmm.
Primo, Lonnie, him, that
Yes.
lineup for a while. So when did they sub him out and put him back in? How did that
Well, they
rotation
subbed
happen?
all the starters in around the 10-minute mark, except for Bryn. They kept Bryn in with the starters, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure they pulled Bryn out at like 5 minutes or 6 minutes or something like that. And then they put Derrick in, and then they put him back in, but it was like DeJounte, Bryn, Derrick, Doug, and Jakob. I think they took Keldon out,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
believe.
that would make sense. That
And
would make that okay. Yeah, now it's all coming back in my mind. I'm looking at the play-by-play here too to try to see some substitutions. But, anyways, that's not the end of the world. Not our hill to die on. But yeah, still, point is, weird that he was in and that it took them that long for Derrick to come back in the game.
Yeah.
His facilitating, I feel like, we talked about that on the show, that it feels like he's better whenever he is in rhythm there and is able to kind of drive inside, do his thing. And I feel like, I don't know what the difference is necessarily. Maybe it's just the other guys knowing the offense or him being more comfortable. It might be something as simple as that. But what have you kind of seen with him whenever it comes to his playmaking? Like, what have you seen specifically that has kind of improved things?
For Derek,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just his confidence level, his aggressiveness, getting to the cup, not being afraid of the contact, getting to the free throw line. All of that just opens up his game, and he, using those spin moves to get inside. That opens up his game, and not being afraid of shooting the three. Because at the beginning of the season, it felt like he was just petrified of shooting the three ball. It is mad. He was
I
pretty
like
upset. He was
that.
texting, yeah, but it felt like he was petrified of scoring, shooting the ball in any way. And now I feel like he has that renewed confidence in himself to be able to get buckets, even though he struggled tonight. And by just being a threat, it opens up everything else. He can dump it off to Jakob inside. He can kick it out to Doug McDermott for an easy three ball. And if he can continue to be aggressive, I think that will just continue to help him start to play better as far as scoring the basketball goes.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. And I think, I was trying to kind of put my finger on it, which is why I asked you. And now that you say that, I can just see it. I think that, when you have the confidence driving, like you said, that opens things up for the rest of the offense and himself. But it's like, I just think about Lonnie. And I know that he doesn't have the confidence when he's driving, and that turns into turnovers. And I felt like that's what was happening in the beginning of the year, kind of similar with Derrick. And now we're seeing a more controlled and more composed Derrick. So
Yeah.
that's good to see. But the reason that I brought up, I think the Spurs are going to win tomorrow, is Spurs have a game tomorrow against the Knicks. Do a little bit of a preview. Don't usually have a back-to-back. What are you thinking about that game and the Spurs' chances there?
Should be interesting. The Knicks have kind of struggled this year for some reason. They recently took Kemba Walker completely out of their rotation, who was supposed to be a big name coming to the team. Defensively, I think they dropped from like 4th to 16th in the league from last season to this season. So they're a team kind of searching still, trying to find their cohesion with all their new guys. So it'll be an interesting matchup. Is it home or away?
So it is, I believe it's at home, if I'm looking at this correctly. Like, it doesn't say at, it just says New York Knicks.
It's at home.
Yeah, it is. Okay,
home.
Bet.
Yeah, so that'll be fun.
There we
I
go.
think
AT&T Center.
I think the Spurs can snag a dub. I think DeJounte can actually have a pretty big night because I don't think they have anybody that can stop him necessarily. Derrick Rose is not a stopper. I don't think Emmanuel Quickley is necessarily going to be able to stop DeJounte either. But at the same time, they got size. Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson, Nerlens Noel. So that could be a really big
Julius
thing.
Randle, man.
Mm-hmm. I don't know who's going to stop him. Keldon kind of can, but he's stronger than Keldon, I think, and he's taller than Keldon.
He's bigger, yeah. He's just
Doug
bigger
is
than
going to
him.
get crippled if he tries to body him up in the post. You're going to put Jakob on him, then who's going to guard Mitchell Robinson down low? So this could prove to be a huge mismatch.
This seems similar to tomorrow, but I still do agree. I think the Spurs can win this game for sure. Like this team is not better than the Warriors or the Suns, and you just beat the Warriors and competed with the Suns down to the down to the minute, not even playing your next game. Oh my gosh. I'm realizing, guys, y'all think, okay, Luka Samanic playing tomorrow, yes or no?
No.
I think he's on the G League. I'm pretty saying Luka revenge game. I don't even, bro. If he comes on the floor, like, I'm turning the TV off. I'm driving to Galveston, and once I get to the beach, I'm just driving forward and never looking back.
Watch him drop 20.
I don't think I could handle it. It'd be too much.
I don't think he's. Is he a two-way?
Yeah, he is.
So he could.
Oh my gosh, man. I didn't even think about that. I'm so glad y'all talked about that. Oh my gosh. That's just funny. I don't think he'll play, but it'd be awesome.
He plays.
I hope he does too, because that would be hilarious. But anyways, Floyd Kizzy, thank you for being in here. Tanner Robinson, Brandon 5042, our boy Nick, Guillermo Munoz, all of y'all, we appreciate you guys being in here for the post game. Ethan, are you able to do tomorrow's post game?
I should be.
Okay, I should be too.
Good.
Wait, no, I can't. Pain. Just remembered work. I cover other sports, y'all. I got to go to another basketball game, unfortunately. But we'll be around. We'll be around. We'll be around.
Yeah,
I'm cheating on the Spurs.
I might have time to do it tomorrow if you're not going to be there. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. Y'all
Maybe
stay
I'll bring
posted.
a guest on. Who knows?
Yes, yeah, totally go for that for sure if you want to. Also, want to remind you guys you can go ahead and head to Spurs Tube TV if you want some SSPN merch. Know it's around the holidays. You want a Christmas present with a little SSPN logo. Get yourself a t-shirt or a hoodie if you want. You can follow us on Twitter at Ethan_Quintero and at Jude McLaren to follow us and stay up to date to shows, when shows get announced, and all that other good stuff. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you just found this channel, which is why I wanted to end this episode on this, Ethan, is because we hit 600 subs. Yay! Thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. I saw that and I didn't even realize it. Me and Ethan just kind of, on a whim, you just texted me, hey, you want to do a San Antonio Spurs podcast? And here we are. So we appreciate all you guys so much. And like our man Bobby February says here, overall, we look good. We really do.
Sure. Thank
and
you, Brandon.
It's the Ethan Show.
Yep, that's
show.
right. Let's
Faux
change
show.
the title.
All right, y'all. Brandon, I appreciate you, my man, and we will see you guys in the next post game or SSPN Live. We'll be around. Stay locked into the channel, and we'll see y'all later. Go Spurs, go.